Hare Krishna. There we go. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajikacharya Ashtotoda Shri Srimad. His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajikacharya Ashtotoda Shri Srimad. His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktavrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Yeah. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. On the 17th day of January 2024 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 4 entitled Transcendental Knowledge, text number 31 on page 218. And this is a short one. Nayam loko asti ayagyasya kuto anyaha kurusattama nayang lokoscha yagyasya kutonya kurusattama nayang lokoscha yagyasya kutonyak kurusattama nayang lokoscha yagyasya kutonyak kurusattama. Go ahead, Babu. Yes. Nayam lokoscha yagyasya kutonyak kurusattama. Chad. Nayam lokoscha yagyasya kutonyak kurusattama. You want to try now? You don't have to. Okay. Natalie? Not yet. Not yet. Okay. You? Never. Anyone online? All right.
Nayam lokoscha yagyasya
Nayam lokoscha yagyasya
kutonaya kurusattama.
kutonya kurusattama. We haven't seen you in a while. You back in Singapore?
Back to San Diego, Prabhu.
Oh, you're in San Diego now?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, good. That's Tapas. He's back after a whole year. Okay, non-never. Non-never. I am this lokaha planet. Asti, there is a yagyasa for one who performs no sacrifice. Kutaha, where is anyaha, the other, kurusattama, or best among the kurus. Translation. O best of the Kuru dynasty, that's Arjuna, O best of the Kuru dynasty, without sacrifice, one can never live happily on this planet or in this life. What then of the next? Purport. Whatever form of material existence one is invariably ignorant of his real situation. In other words, existence in the material world is due to the multiple reactions to our sinful lives. Ignorance is the cause of sinful life, and sinful life is the cause of one's dragging on in material existence. The human form of life is the only loophole by which one may get out of this entanglement. The Vedas, therefore, give us a chance for escape by pointing out the paths of religion, economic comfort, regulated sense gratification, and at last, the means to get out of the miserable condition entirely. The path of religion, or the different kinds of sacrifice recommended above, automatically solves our economic problems. By performance of yajna, that's sacrifice, we can have enough food, enough milk, etc., even if there is a so-called increase of population. When the body is fully supplied, naturally the next stage is to satisfy the senses. The Vedas prescribe, therefore, sacred marriage for regulated sense gratification. Thereby one is gradually elevated to the platform of release from material bondage. And the highest perfection of liberated life is to associate with the Supreme Lord. Perfection is achieved by performance of yajna, sacrifice, as described above. Now, if a person is not inclined to perform yajna according to the Vedas, how can he expect a happy life even in this body? And what to speak of another body on another planet? There are different grades of material comforts in different heavenly planets. And in all cases, there is immense happiness for persons engaged in different kinds of yajna. But the highest kind of happiness that a man can achieve is to be promoted to the spiritual planets by practice of Krishna consciousness. A life of Krishna consciousness is therefore the solution to all the problems of material existence. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur unmilatam mena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So that verse that I just chanted is actually very pertinent to this purport and verse that we're studying, this portion of the Bhagavad Gita. So, in this purport, Prabhupada explains that the source of sinful life is ignorance, and sinful life is the source of misery, of difficulty. We have no idea of our own history as spiritual souls, as spiritual beings. The basic principle of the Bhagavad Gita and of Vedic knowledge in general is the understanding that we're spiritual, that we are spirit souls or Atma, dwelling temporarily in a physical body. And what's clear to everyone is that there are all kinds of different material bodies, organisms we call them, combinations of matter and spirit. Now most people don't think twice that there's a spirit in the body. We just think, well, who are you? Well, this is who I am. I was born at this date. I like the example of if you stopped you go through a red light or something, a red stop sign. All right, so the cop's there, and I'm going to get a ticket. So what do they ask for first? License and registration, right? They want to know if you're really the authorized driver of the car, and so you give them the license. What's on the license? Well, there's a picture of you, date of birth, there's your address, right? And the date when the license expires. So that little license has what most people consider their vital statistics, who they really are. There's a picture of me, you know, maybe a little dated. That was 4 years ago, but it's okay. And your age may be on there, your weight, I think, your eye color, I think they have. In other words, different material descriptions of you, where you're living, and by looking at the picture, they can tell what race you are, and so forth. These are all what we call material designations, meaning that they're temporary, because the body is temporary. Previous life, okay, maybe I had a human life, or maybe I didn't have a human life, because you come up the species. But we certainly had a different body, and in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes the transmigration of the soul in this one body, because this is a key understanding. And don't forget, knowledge is the ticket out of sin. In other words, we can avoid sin by becoming knowledgeable, and then we can avoid suffering. And ultimately, we can solve all the problems by leaving all these material bodies behind and regaining our original spiritual body. This is a basic principle of Krishna consciousness, that we all have a swarup. Swarup means our original rupa, or form, that is now covered, and we've lost touch with it completely. But it's still there in the spiritual form. And that can be reawakened by the process of devotional service. So Krishna has been describing in previous verses different kinds of sacrifice, for those who are here, for different persons, and also for different purposes. Sacrifice is a form of austerity, really, because it's something that you value. It could be just your time, like when you perform the Sankirtan sacrifice. That's a sacrifice. It's known as the Sankirtan Yajna. Yajna is the word for sacrifice. So what do you have to give? Well, you don't really have to pay. You know, it's free, right? Have you ever known a kirtan where you have an admission, you know? Sorry, you can't be part of the kirtan unless you give $5. No, anyone can do kirtan. You can do it at home. You can do it on the street. So that's not the sacrifice. But you need to sacrifice your time and a little bit of energy. But most important element in the Sankirtan Yajna is your faith in the holy name. Otherwise, it becomes an empty ritual. You know, you're just doing it for show or whatever. And there's people who do that. They actually do it for money. There's professional kirtan leaders and everything. And we're enjoined, don't listen to that kirtan, because it won't have the potency. It contaminate. Sanatana Goswami get a verse, I think. Oh God, these verses are leaving me because I'm not reviewing them. Anyway, the gist is, don't listen to any kind of Krishna Katha from a non-devotee. Because of all this, it may sound the same, like a kirtan, someone's very skilled at singing. How can you tell the difference? But there is a difference. There's a subtle difference because there's no real bhakti there. There's no real feeling. And it's just professional performance. Prabhupada would talk in the Srimad Bhagavatam, if or when you read the Bhagavatam, in that first canto, of course Prabhupada's in India, he's writing it there, so you don't get any touches of Western, things that he experienced. You'll find in later cantos. But he speaks very strongly against the professional Bhagavatam reciters. Now, they do what is called Bhagavat Saptaha. Sapta in Sanskrit is the word for seven. And Saptaha means 7 days, right? So those who know the history of Bhagavatam, read the first canto, you soon learn that, yes, King Pariksit, the whole, I'll give you a 2-minute summary of how the Bhagavatam was first spoken. First of all, you start with Shukadeva Goswami. Shukadeva Goswami is the son of Vyasadeva. And he was so detached, even in the womb, he didn't want to take birth. He didn't want to get entangled. So somehow he stayed inside. I don't know, the poor mother had to go through that. But it was for years. Finally, Krishna came from Dwarka to come and convince him to come out. He said, don't worry, you'll be fine, So he comes out, he's already 16, and he takes sannyas. He leaves home, just taking birth. He was already very advanced, obviously. Anyway, eventually he came back. His father spoke the Bhagavatam to him. Now, the importance of the Srimad Bhagavatam has to be emphasized. And that's described at the beginning of the Bhagavatam, how it came to be written. In the 5th chapter, we get some details. So Vyasadeva, who's Vyasadeva? Vyasadeva is the author of all the literatures that we read. The Mahabharata, which contains the Bhagavad Gita. The Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the crown jewel of all the Vedas, you see. Now, of course, there are other essential books that are in line with those two, and specifically, say we have the Nectar of Devotion, which is Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which is written by Rupa Goswami, one of the prime disciples of Lord Chaitanya. But it's based on the Bhagavatam. You read in the Nectar of Devotion, you'll find all kinds of quotes from the Srimad Bhagavatam. And then we have the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which carries forward the same ideas that are there in Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. And Lord Chaitanya, he did not teach anything different. He taught the essence of the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. And he showed by his personal example the process, and he gave this wonderful process of chanting Hare Krishna, congregational chanting. So, the Bhagavatam was spoken to Shukadeva Goswami by Vyasadeva. He had written it. And then he, in turn, spoke it to King Pariksit. There's a whole story, which I won't get into, how this wonderful king, he was the last descendant of the Pandavas. That war that took place, it killed everybody, but he was still there in the womb of Uttara, his mother. And Krishna saved him. They tried to kill him, but it wasn't possible. So he then became a king, one of these wonderful Rajarshis. The word Rajarshi is a combination of two words, Raja, which means king, and Rishi, which means learned sage, devotee. So you get Rajarshi, a king who's a great devotee and learned sage, and he has nothing but care for the project, for the citizens, So anyway, there's a whole. I won't get into the whole story how he made a mistake, and he got. And there was this young Brahmin boy whose father was insulted, by King Pariksit, and kind of by mistake almost. But anyway, so he had the Brahma Tejas. See, this is the beginning of Kali Yuga. He had the power of the Brahman, but he didn't have the discrimination. This Shringi, he was just a young boy, and he used his power to take revenge, and he had cursing power. So he cursed King Pariksit to die in 7 days by the bite of a snake bird. This is a poisonous bird-like animal who's like a snake. So Pariksit, he could have counteracted the curse, but he chose not to. He said, accepted it as this is the will of the Lord. So what am I going to do with those 7 days? This is the key. So he decided to go sit by the Ganges, and to wait there to see what happened. He goes there, and Shukadeva comes, and all these great sages and come to hear the speaking of the Bhagavatam. And that's what we hear when we read the Bhagavatam. We're hearing actually within that first audience was a devotee named Sutta Goswami who heard it, and this is testimony to the incredible brains that they had at that time. The whole thing is 18,000 verses long. It's quite long. It's like 12, big volumes, you see. And of course that's with commentary, but it's long. He memorized the whole thing just by hearing it once. Can you imagine? We have trouble memorizing a verse, and you go over it, then you got it memorized, then you forget it. So he memorized it, and he repeated it at a gathering at Naimisharanya later on, and that's what we hear. That's where we have as the Bhagavatam coming down as being given. So the idea is that this Srimad Bhagavatam is the ripened fruit of all the Vedic knowledge. It's the creme de la creme. It gives us the essence. And we learn in previous verses here how parts of the Vedas deal with sacrifices. In fact, the majority of the Vedas, it's long, there's many Upanishads and Puranas and things, instructing you how to perform sacrifices and rituals and chant mantras and pray in order to improve your material condition. Either on this planet through the next birth or going to a heavenly planet. And that's very attractive to people, because who are materially oriented. They're not focused on making a full solution to the problem of life and not coming back again, getting liberation, but rather improving the material condition. Then go to the heavenly planets, as Krishna describes. Tetam bhukpa swargalokam vishanam. Swargaloka means heaven. And enjoying godly delights we can't even imagine for a long, long, long time, It's like going on vacation. People manage, okay, I saved up my money now I have a 2-week or a 1-week paid vacation. Now let me go to Hawaii, or let me go to San Diego. I heard they have a great zoo there. And it's like 20 degrees here, in Houston. Well, let me go to San Diego. Look, it's 60, 70 years. So people, they come. So that's a pale reflection of it. So this is, all right, we go up there, for thousands and millions of years, and but you have to come back down again. So here, and just for the ordinary living on this earth, sacrifice is so important. Now here we are sitting in New Govardhan, right? So we should all, by this time, because I've been here for 35 years, so know the significance of New Govardhan. Govardhan Hill, Govardhana, what does it mean? It means a place that nourishes the cows. That's what Govardhana means, right? So Govardhan Hill is full of wonderful grasses for them to eat, and also beautiful, pristine streams of water and like that. And it's also a place of pastimes for Krishna, so it's a very holy place. And there's this whole pastime we should know, where Nanda Maharaj, as the leader of the whole community, he was getting ready to perform the regular Indra Jagya, sacrifice to Indra, so that he will send the right amount of rain at the right time, so that all the plants will grow and the crops will grow and be able to feed the cows and everything. It's a regular program for any agricultural worship Indra. So what did Krishna do? He came and he stopped the yajna. One of his qualities is a very skillful speaker, right? Very delightful. So you imagine, on a mundane level, you're like a 7-year-old boy or a 7-year-old girl, and your father is at the kitchen table filling out the tax form. They pay the taxes for the yearly tax. It's very important, otherwise they get trouble, right? And you come and you say, Father, don't bother. What do you mean, don't bother? We're going to get it. But you're so convincing that he gives up on that, So that's what Krishna did. Because the taxes means you sacrifice to Indra, and he then takes charge and he makes everything nice for him. So there was a reaction. Indra became furious. This is the problem with Indra. He loses. It's not an accident that the word for Indriya, meaning with senses, is Indriya. Notice how close it is to Indra? He loses control of his senses. He's controlled by the senses. So he was completely insulted. I wrote a little poem. So it's when Krishna stopped King Indra's sacrifice, that monarch of the heavens threw a fit. Those cowards took that foolish boy's advice. Such insolence I never shall permit. So Indra sent the clouds of devastation to pour down catastrophic hail and rain with lightning, thunder, winds without cessation. The cowards called to Krishna in their pain. To show his coward friends his boundless love and crush King Indra's pride for his own good, Shri Krishna lifted Govardhan above and saved his friends while neath the hill they stood. You see? So that's a little summary. So the point is that sacrifice is necessary, but material sacrifice is just another form of entanglement in this world. So how do we know the difference? By getting knowledge. The knowledge is so important. By attaining knowledge, we understand that we need to perform sacrifice, but we need to perform a sacrifice in a way that it moves us along the path back to Godhead. And when you get to the spiritual world, there's no sacrifice. There's no sacrifice. Everybody is completely focused on Krishna and loving exchanges with Krishna. And sacrifice means there's a certain pain there. I have to give up $10,000 for charity or whatever it is. You know, it's a sacrifice or something that. But it's not sacrifice. And even in this plane, you know, austerity. Austerity is very close to sacrifice, right? Austerity has more variety to it. Every sacrifice is an austerity, but every austerity is not a sacrifice. Meaning the austerity to get up early in the morning, you know, and give up this, give up that, 4 regular principles. Okay, that's a sacrifice. That's an austerity. But it doesn't really cost anything. It's just like trouble, you know, it's painful at first. But in bhakti, the sacrifices you make, after some time, they turn into pure pleasure. Just like getting up early in the morning and coming to Mangalarti, seeing the deities. Does it feel like an austerity to see the beautiful forms of Radha and Krishna? What's the austerity? You know? It may be an austerity when you first start and you have to do all the things to actually get here, you know. But at a certain point, it's just pleasure, you see. And it's just like, the purest kind of love in this world is a mother's love for a little baby child, you know, her little child. It's completely selfless. The mother doesn't, make a deal with the child. Okay, I'll feed you and I'll keep you warm, and I'll clean you up. If this, and this. If I could, no. All the mother wants is the child not crying, looking at the mother, smiling without the teeth. I guess without, whatever. Just that reciprocate. That's everything. That makes the mother's day, isn't it? And if the child is well fed and happy and safe, then the mother is pleased. But the mother has to work so hard, sacrifice time and everything in order to make that happen. But it feels like an act of love, you see? It is an act of love. And so it's not painful, it's just pure pleasure. So that's what the ultimate goal in Krishna consciousness is, the things that you have to get accustomed to and get practiced at. It's just like learning an instrument. I'll go back to when my brother, I was a kid. I was probably about, 10 years old. And he was in high school. And he was trying to learn to play the violin. And he wasn't, he didn't inherit. I inherited some musical, aptitude. But he didn't. But still, they thought maybe he could learn. So he's sawing away in the other room, and it's, oh my God, And it wasn't music, And after a little while, he gave it up, because he wasn't naturally attracted to it. But there's a certain period where you have to go over a hump. If you want to, and you say, okay, my goal is to become, be able to play the violin, the flute, the piano, or something. And it's an austerity to learn. But after a while, you'll be able to start to make music. And what was once an austerity is just a pleasure. Just like we have our Mogalila, He's incredibly, it took him about, was it even a week to learn how to play the drum? I remember when he first joined, another week to learn the harmonium. He's incredible. So you can hear him. If he's in the temple room and he's going to play the drum and he has the drum, he'll start playing it, right? It's just a pleasure. The whole thing is natural. It's not like, oh, I got to do this, like that. So the same thing with bhakti is that there's a natural pleasure in the chanting of the holy name and dancing. This is the great, gift of Lord Chaitanya. If you just begin to take part, you'll soon find there's a pleasure to it. There's nice music and everything. And there's something called Taurya Chikena, which some of you may have heard of this. The playing musical instruments, singing and dancing. Now those can clearly be used for sense gratification. Raves, rock concerts, all of these things. You're dancing, you may be singing along with it, and, but it's in the modes. It's in the modes. It's not going to get you any closer to going back to guided. But those same three things can be employed in glorifying Krishna. What is kirtan but singing, dancing, and playing musical instruments? Now, it helps if the person next to you can really play the musical instrument, but that's another thing. But gradually, it's easy. So the wonderful thing is, it's just like prasadam, food. It doesn't take long, to get a taste for prasadam. And always, as Bhadranarayan will point out, gradually during the lecture, more and more people come because they know when the prasadam is going to be served out. So they're getting some benefit. But the thing is, the prasadam itself is spiritualizing because it's offered with love, it's cooked with love and devotion in that instance. So this is the wonderful opportunity we have in this Kali Yuga, and especially this Kali Yuga. Because Krishna doesn't appear in every Kali Yuga, in every Dwapara Yuga. But when Lord Chaitanya, when Krishna appears in Dwapara Yuga, then he comes again in Kali Yuga, once in every day of Brahma. Now, how long is that? Who can give me an estimate? Forget millions. We're in the billions. That's the 12 hours. Then another 12 hours, you double it, 8,640,000,000 years. As a day, 24 hours for Brahma. Once in every day of Brahma, Krishna comes to this earth. Did we win the lottery or not? Right? Here we are sitting 5,000 years. 5,000 years is like a split second, right? And Krishna just came, and Lord Chaitanya was just here 500 years ago. It's practically a blink of an eye, relatively. And so we have a great opportunity, and it's not an accident why we took birth here now at this time. We have something in our background that brought us. There's a wonderful verse. I'm getting too far astray here. Kapila Dev speaks to his mother, Devahuti, the wonderful section of 3rd canto. And during that, when he's talking to her, she's glorifying him and she's glorifying the holy name. And here's a famous verse that's often quoted. Aho bata shapachoto gariyan yajigvagre vartate namatubhyam te pustapus je juhuvu sastarare brahmanachur nama gunantiyede. So the word aho doesn't need translation. It means, oh, how wonderful. Aho bata is a combination, means how wonderful it is. Swapachoto, even those who are born in the families of dog eaters, which is lower than even, I understand, in Vedical, and cow eaters, apparently. Very low born, how glorious they are if your name is being uttered on the tips of the tongue. They don't say it has to be purely. It's just somehow or other they're chanting your name. Swapachoto, jigvagre, at the tip of the tongue. Jigvagre vartate nama tubhyam, your nama, your name. Kapila Deva is an incarnation of Krishna. And so what does she say? In the previous life, they must have performed all kinds of austerities, visited all these holy places, performed all kinds of sacrifices, and studied the Vedas and everything. Previous life. Now we can't remember any of that. But still, we're trying to chant the holy name. It's just all auspicious. So these verses will ultimately culminate in text 34, which maybe we can read tonight, which is a very important verse on the importance of spiritual master. All right, any questions on this quick verse? In other words, if you want to be happy in this world, you got to perform sacrifice, because then the rains will come, at least you get rain. And what to speak of the next, if you want to try to be happy in the next life. So sacrifice has to be performed. Which sacrifice and in what consciousness, that can be taught by the spiritual master, which is coming up. All right, text 32. Evam bohovada yagya vitata brahmano mukhe karmajan vidnitan sarvan evam gatva vimokshase. So all these different types of sacrifice, which were explained in previous verses. If you're going to go, you can review. All these different types of sacrifice are approved by the Vedas, and all of them are born of different types of work. Knowing them as such, you will become liberated. Purport. Different types of sacrifice, as discussed above, are mentioned in the Vedas to suit the different types of worker. Because people are so deeply absorbed in the bodily concept, these sacrifices are so arranged that one can work either with the body, with the mind, or with the intelligence. But all of them are recommended for ultimately bringing about liberation from the body. This is confirmed by the Lord herewith from his own mouth. Okay. So, of course, ultimately he'll make it clear that the sacrifice has to be aimed ultimately at connecting with Krishna, and otherwise if it's just material, then it keeps you bound in this world. Shreyan Jumyamayad Yagyaj Jnana Yagya Parantapa Sarvam Karma Kilam Parta Jnane Parisamapyate. O chastiser of the enemy, the sacrifice performed in knowledge is better than the mere sacrifice of material possessions. After all, O son of Pita, all sacrifices of work culminate in transcendental knowledge. Purport. The purpose of all sacrifices is to arrive at the status of complete knowledge, then to gain release from material miseries, and ultimately to engage in loving transcendental service to the Supreme Lord, Krishna, consciousness. Nonetheless, there is a mystery about all these different activities of sacrifice, and one should know this mystery. Sacrifices sometimes take different forms according to the particular faith of the performer. When one's faith reaches the stage of transcendental knowledge, the performer of sacrifices should be considered more advanced than those who simply sacrifice material possessions without such knowledge. For without attainment of knowledge, sacrifices remain on the material platform and bestow no spiritual benefit. Real knowledge culminates in Krishna consciousness, the highest stage of transcendental knowledge. Without the elevation of knowledge, sacrifices are simply material activities. When, however, they are elevated to the level of transcendental knowledge, all such activities enter onto the spiritual platform. Depending on differences in consciousness, sacrificial activities are sometimes called karma kanda, fruit of activities, and sometimes jnana kanda, knowledge in the pursuit of truth. It is better when the end is knowledge. So, this is everything in the Bhagavad Gita ultimately brings you back, to Krishna consciousness. Even though there's mention here of material sacrifices, there's also I think in this chapter, or what chapter 7 I think, I forget, but it describes Arnadbabandi Bhutani Parjanadana Sambhava. Is that everyone that subsists on food grains, who can deny it? Even the meat-eaters, they have to feed the animals, So, Anad Bhavandi Bhutnim Parjanad Sambhava, Yagya Bhavati Parjanyo, Yagya Karma Samudbhava. So everyone that subsists on food grains come from the rains, but regular rain, comes from regular sacrifice, you see. And sacrifice is situated in knowledge. You have to know that. So he's describing how that's why we had that one-line verse. Without sacrifice, one can never live happily on this planet, because he can't even eat. In other words, the sacrifice is performed everywhere, and people are like austerities. Those of us that come to Mangalarti got to get up early, and I believe 3:30, 4 o'clock. But there are people out there who are getting up and getting on the road by 4 a.m. so they can get up north somewhere to go to work. Do you think that's not a sacrifice? That's a big sacrifice, And then, coming back, the commute, the whole thing, So everyone is making sacrifices, but sacrifice in knowledge is what we're looking for. And that will become clear in the next verse. How do we know what sacrifices to perform, how to perform them? That we need instruction from the Shastra and from the Guru, and ultimately from the Super Soul. One of the really illuminating instructions in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Lord Chaitanya is speaking to Sanatana Goswami in the beginning the 20th chapter of Madhya Lila, and he describes how the Super Soul is always trying to instruct us, but we're so externally oriented that we don't hear. But Prabhupada makes the point, when you hear like the voice of conscience, you think, oh, I should do something. No, I know I shouldn't do that. That should is only on the human platform. The animals don't have should. They don't have, moral reason not to do something. It's all like instinct, right? So we also have that animalistic part. So the animal is telling you to do it, but the super soul, the conscience, is saying, no, that's bad. That's morally wrong. You see? The voice of conscience, that's the super soul. So, but the super soul has so much more to teach us. And so, but we can't hear him properly. So he comes externally as the Shastra and as the Guru, or Gurus. There's instructing Guru and also initiating Guru. But someone who knows, who you have faith in, who can give you real knowledge. So when we read the Bhagavad Gita as it is, because Srila Prabhupada is such a pure, advanced devotee, he's giving it. And we're associating both with Krishna and with Srila Prabhupada. What a great fortune that is. And if we take the instruction to heart here, then we can transform our lives into a sacrifice. The whole life becomes an offering to Krishna, you see? And that's perfection. You don't lose anything. You think you're losing, but you're gaining the eternal life. You're moving toward you're on the bhakti marga. It's a path. And I always make the point, and I take encouragement from that verse in the second chapter, Neha Brikkamanashosti Pratyavayana Vidyate, that in this endeavor of Krishna, there's no loss and no diminution. If you chant just one round or just one name, you've begun your path in devotional service. And you're not going to get a subhuman life, if you chant a little sincerely. So what to speak of becoming serious. And it's not difficult. It's like, okay, I can't chant, take 2 rounds a day, even 1 round a day, but make a commitment. And Krishna's there, he sees you're trying, and he makes it easier for you to continue. And he makes the arrangements. So I want to start this verse. We may read it twice, today and also Monday, this next verse, 34. This is a classic. Tadvidi paripatena pariprashnena sevaya ubadikshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. Purport. The path of spiritual realization is undoubtedly difficult. The Lord therefore advises us to approach a bona fide spiritual master in the line of disciplic succession from the Lord himself. No one can be a bona fide spiritual master without following this principle of disciplic succession. The Lord is the original spiritual master, and a person in the disciplic succession can convey the message of the Lord as it is to his disciple. No one can be spiritually realized by manufacturing his own process, as is the fashion of the foolish pretenders. Page 221. The Bhagavatam 6.3.19 says, Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. The path of religion is directly enunciated by the Lord. Therefore, mental speculation or dry arguments cannot help lead one to the right path. Nor by independent study of books of knowledge can one progress in spiritual life. One has to approach a bona fide spiritual master to receive the knowledge. Such a spiritual master should be accepted in full surrender, and one should serve the spiritual master like a menial servant, without false prestige. Satisfaction of the self-realized spiritual master is the secret of advancement in spiritual life. Inquiries and submission constitute the proper combination for spiritual understanding. Unless there is submission and service, inquiries from the learned spiritual master, inquiries to the learned spiritual master will not be effective. One must be able to pass the test of the spiritual master, and when he sees the genuine desire of the disciple, he automatically blesses the disciple with genuine spiritual understanding. In this verse, both blind following and absurd inquiries are condemned. Not only should one hear submissively from the spiritual master, but one must also get a clear understanding from him in submission and service and inquiries. A bona fide spiritual master is by nature very kind toward the disciple. Therefore, when the student is submissive and is always ready to render service, the reciprocation of knowledge and inquiries becomes perfect. So this is a, what do you say, seminal verse in the Bhagavad Gita, because ultimately the process of bhakti is one of relationship. We're trying to awaken our relationship with God, with Krishna. There's no greater aim or goal in life than that. That is the ultimate goal of life. There's a nice verse which summarizes Lord Chaitanya's teachings. There's several verses like that, but this is one. Arajo Bhagavan Vajeshatanayas Tad Dhamma Vrindavanam Ramya Kachadupasana Vardavadu Vargena Yakalpita Srimad Bhagavate Pramanamamilam Prema Pumato Mahan Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Matamadam Tattadarang Naparaha. Do you know that one? It's a very important verse. So he's summarizing, and it's not in the Bhagavatam or anything. It's in a book called the Chaitanya Manjusha, which is a collective verses, a verse in in relation to Lord Chaitanya. So the first thing, Arajo Bhagavan. Well, who should we worship in this world? Everyone's worshiping someone, right? If you're not worshiping God, you're worshiping Mammon, right? That's also explained in the Bhagavatam. We don't have time to but Arajo Bhagavan, one should worship the Supreme Personality of God. Well, who's that? Vajeshatanayas, the son of the king of Braja, no question about it. Krishna in Vrindavan especially. And Vajeshatanayas Tad Dhamma Vrindavan, I mean, one should also worship his Dhamma, which is non-different from him, Vrindavan. And so these temples are meant to be little outposts of Vrindavan, really, you know. So Arajo Bhagavan Vajeshatanayas Tad Dhamma Vrindavanam, then how? Ramya Kachadupasana Vardavadu Vargena Yakalpita. The gopis in Vrindavan embody the supreme form of worship for Krishna. They're the best devotees. You know, so that's part, you know, important part of Lord Chaitanya's teaching. Now, what's the evidence for all this? Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam Amalam. Pramana means evidence, and Amalam means pure, pristine. So the ultimate evidence for these statements is the Srimad Bhagavatam itself. And what's the end of it all? Prema Pumato Mahan. The ultimate goal of all of this, of Lord Chaitanya's process of teachings in Bhagavatam, is pure love for God. That's the Pumato Mahan, the great goal for human beings. Pum is short for Pungsa, which means human being. And Arta means goal. That's the goal, the real goal of life. And then the author, we don't know who it is, says, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Matamatam Tattvadanaknaparaha. These are the essence of the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and I don't know anything beyond that. I don't accept anything beyond. It's good to know these little summary verses, you know. But that goal of prema, so well, what will take me closer to that goal, and what will, you know, impede my progress to that goal? That's what we have in the Bhagavad Gita and the Nectar of Devotion and Srila Prabhupada's explanations in his classes. And it's basically a reorientation of our desires or our heart or our energies away from trying to satisfy our gross and subtle senses, the mind, intelligence, and the senses. It's described beautifully at the end of the last chapter. You remember we talked about, Arjuna asked, well, what is it that impels one to act against his own best interests as if by force? What's the answer? You don't know? Kama. Kama esha, krodha esha, rajoguna samudvaha. It's lust, not just sex desire, but any powerful material desire, which is ultimately frustrated and then transforms into wrath, into anger. Lust, anger, and greed are the gates leading to hell in the 16th chapter. So we don't realize it, but we're involved in that. You know, without Krishna, then we inevitably become tied up in so many unwanted desires in this material. So transferring, but he says, Prabhupada says, that kama, that material desire, is nothing but prema that has been adulterated by association with the material modes of nature. So we don't try to kill desire, but we try to sublimate it. So, you know, eating. Okay, I'm not going to eat any more, you know, junk from the supermarket and everything. I'm just going to eat prasadam. It's so wonderful, you know. Hey, you hear? They have free prasadam there, you know, at 8:30, and people show up, you know. That's fine, because it brings you into the association. The devotees itself is a purifying act, and in the association, the devotees say, okay, what goes along with the prasadam? They're chanting, and so that's how it begins. That's how I started. I would go to the temple, and I would hang out with the devotees a little bit and chant. Then one of the wonderful devotees took me down. They had the prasadam hall in the basement, and I would be taking my rice and dal, whatever it was that left over, and he'd be preaching to me, and so in that way I got interested, bought a book, and said, oh, this makes sense. So anyway, that's the process, and this verse we'll cover again because it's so important. The importance of accepting a teacher. Now the thing is, as I mentioned, the guru is not one but many. There's one initiating guru, but there's many instructing gurus. And those who are simply, the whole thing is that the guru has to be transparent. He's a medium through which the teachings can come. But he custom makes it for the person and the time and the place. So the Prabhupada's, the great gift is he gave it to us in English. What does it do in Bengali and Sanskrit? It's been for many hundreds and thousands of years. But he took the trouble to translate first the Bhagavatam, then the Gita, and all these books. And then from the English, it's translated into 80, 90 languages now. Most of the books in ISKCON are distributed in Hindi and Bengali now. In India, at first, Prabhupada, you hear the lectures and he's saying, oh, India, and they're not taking it. But they're doing it in America, So he brought the Americans and the Europeans to India, and he called the Dancing White Elephants. Giriraj Swami is writing a book called Dancing White Elephants. How that was a revolutionary thing. Because the Indians were like a gag. Who are these? They're obviously sincere, Anyway, it's quite an adventure. If you want to see something, I'll try to get the link. Yodubar Prabhu, who's a wonderful devotee, he made so many videos and movies and took many, many pictures, still life. Mostly his wife took the stills. But many years ago, 25, 30 years now, he did a series called Following Srila Prabhupada. Because I had all this video, so he edited it all down to chronological. And then he went and found the devotees, most of whom were still around at that time, who were in the videos to announce, accompany it and say, here's what's going on, and giving. So it's a very wonderful series. And one of the most amazing ones is when they're in Surat. When he goes, he's got all these devotees from the West, and they go to Surat, which is a Vaishnava city. Everyone's a Vaishnava there, and people would come out of their homes and give the devotees garlands as they're chanting in the street. Those who were there. When Giriraj Swami came, one of the devotees who was there with him, Kaushalya, she was one of the singers there. And she came in, because he was staying at my place, so she came and they were discussing the old days there. It was really, nice to hear all that. But it was, that was a revolutionary, and Prabhupada was able to start a center, in Calcutta, and of course in Bombay, there's a big struggle, but the big temple there. And Vrindavan, the most popular temple, is our temple there now, the Krishna Balaram temple. So it was an incredible adventure, Prabhupada, and he was empowered by the Sixth Goswami, by Lord Chaitanya, by Krishna, by spiritual master, to do what he did. And we're beneficiaries of his great austerities. All right, time for one quick poem. Many of you haven't heard this one yet. The Sanskrit is I forget the Sanskrit. The desert of this world is scorching me, tormenting me with endless misery. But now I see the perfect remedy. I'll dive into the lake of Sri Hari, Krishna. The lotuses that grow within that pool are Krishna's hands and feet, so soft and cool. The fish there are his eyes, which ridicule a pair of most exquisite, brilliant jewels. His arms with graceful motions ever make delightful waves in that unfathomed lake. Its water is his splendor. Let me take deep draughts of it, my burning thirst to slake. If you desire relief from misery and wish to get perfection easily, then take to heart my easy remedy and dive into the lake of Sri Hari. The verse from the Mukunda Mala Stotra. This is written hundreds of years before Lord Chaitanya. Okay, so we'll reconvene again on Monday. You're all invited. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. And thanks to our guests on YouTube. Haribol.